Fantastic. That is 3:05 Central European time, 7:05 in the morning from where I am calling in the United States. And I'm very, very happy to be able to welcome you to this webinar organized by the Major Group for Children and Youth Constituency for Sustainable Communities. My name is Carrick Redden, and I'm the regional focal point for Europe and Other of this group. For those of you who aren't aware, the Major Group for Children and Youth is a formal and self-organized space for children and young people, those aged below 30, to contribute to and engage in intergovernmental and allied policy processes at the United Nations. And the MGCY has been around since 1992. Specifically, our constituency for sustainable communities works in areas around SDG 11 for sustainable cities and communities, UN habitat processes, and very many processes at the UN, which have to do with sustainable urban and territorial development. The group was very active leading up to the passage of the New Urban Agenda in Quito in 2016, and just this year has restarted and is building back in this decade of action leading to the 2030 goals, the sustainable development goals. And we're very excited today to welcome this distinguished group of panelists to discuss youth engagement, specifically in the European context, in the sort of backdrop of the recently passed EU Green Deal, the approved new Leipzig Charter, the urban agenda for the EU, and the very many policy frameworks that are currently governing the development of the bloc, not just for the next 5 to 10 years, but really toward a carbon neutral and inclusive society in 2050. And so I'm excited to welcome first member of Commissioner Ferreira's cabinet, Violeta Danin-Majeska, who's going to speak to us a bit about the Green Deal and the urban agenda. And then we'll be able to welcome Mr. Jonas Scholze, who will talk to us about the new Leipzig Charter, then moving to a case study from Baia Mare, Romania, which is a very exciting project that we have Enrico and Kodrat to talk to us about. And then finally, some concluding remarks from our colleague from Denmark, Barako. So, Ms. Danin-Majeska, I ask that you please take us away with a bit of background on the Green Deal and the urban agenda for the EU.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carrick, for this introduction, and thank you for inviting me. It is a great pleasure to speak to you today, and I'm speaking to the audience, to you panelists, of course, but the audience that I cannot see. It's a great pleasure, and this is for many reasons. And one of the most important being that we, EU officials, rarely have a chance to address children and young people on policy matters. I am working, as you said, in the cabinet of Commissioner Elisa Ferreira, responsible for cohesion policy and reforms at the European Commission, one of the top 3 EU institutions shaping the policies of the bloc. Now, we at the Commission have the rights of legislative initiative. This means that we are preparing projects of legal acts, which are then tabled to be discussed and negotiated with the Council of the European Union, where the responsible national ministers from the 27 member states gather, and with the European Parliament directly elected by EU citizens. And I understand that our audience today are young participants in various United Nations processes, which are related to sustainable development. And as this seminar discusses the urban sustainable future, I would like to present today a background on the policy landscape in the European Union and share my view on opportunities for how stakeholders, particularly young people, can engage in sustainable development efforts. So let me start with the Green Deal, which is the flagship project of this Commission led by Ursula von der Leyen. So what is Green Deal? In short, it's a new EU growth strategy. It is a set of many initiatives and legal proposals which are being worked and adopted as we speak, and which are meant to transform EU economy into circular and resource efficient, as well as to preserve and restore ecosystems and biodiversity, and all of this while ensuring a just and inclusive transition. In plain language, the Green Deal is aiming to help us change ways in which we produce and consume, in which we travel long and short haul, and the way we move around cities, and the way we work. And this is being done under several headings: climate ambition, clean, affordable, and secure energy, industrial strategy for a clean and circular economy. It also involves smart and sustainable mobility, greening the common agricultural policy, preserving and protecting biodiversity. It is also about zero pollution ambition for a toxic-free environment, strengthening EU green diplomacy, and working together under European Climate Pact. And among the strategies already adopted since the beginning of this mandate, so since December 2019, you may have heard perhaps of our biodiversity strategy or the climate law, which is enshrining the EU emission reduction ambition of minus 55% of greenhouse gases by 2030. Or perhaps you heard about the Circular Economy Action Plan, or Farm to Fork strategy, or the EU push to create a batteries value chain in Europe so as to accelerate the move to clean transport. So all of this, what is cohesion policy and how will this be relevant to fulfill the goals which we have set ourselves within the Green Deal? Now, cohesion policy is sometimes referred to as regional policy, and it was set up to help alleviate the disparities between regions. And the regions in Europe are many, there are around 300, and they face many different challenges. Some of them are missing good digital infrastructure, some are overly dependent on tourism, others have weak road connections, some face depopulation, and some have to deal with environmental problems or unemployment, which is due to the move away from fossil fuels. Now, cohesion policy is an investment policy and is in charge of using dedicated funds together with member states and regions concerned to finance programs and projects to support job creation, business competitiveness, economic growth, sustainable development, and generally ways to improve citizens' quality of life. We, with cohesion policy, are responsible for about a third of EU budget. Oh, excuse me. In this 7-year period, 2021-2027, we will assist EU regions with well over 300 billion, and 30% of which is around 100 billion, will target climate spending. So with this stage set, what will cohesion policy finance to fulfill the goals of Green Deal and to be close to the citizens? Let me give you a few examples. We will help regions participate in the renovation wave. This is one of the initiatives also announced within the Green Deal. And this initiative is to insulate houses and to improve energy efficiency of EU building stock. Did you know that close to 40% of heat goes directly into the atmosphere? And this is because buildings have leaky roofs, windows, and doors, and we want to change that. We will help regions to move to clean transport by helping them buy zero emissions vehicles, buses. We will help them build cycling paths and charging stations for electric cars. We will also help cities green the urban spaces to lower temperatures in the streets and to improve the quality of air. So now, how can you engage? And what is your role in all of this? Excuse me, I have to mute myself for a second. I have a bit of a, sorry.
I imagine we're getting the next generation brought onto the camera for some participation. Oh, you've muted yourself now.
Am I unmuted now? Yes.
You are unmuted.
So now with all of these examples, how can young people engage, and what is your role in all of this? And there are many ways in which you can get involved. For instance, in cities and towns where you live, there are local councillors and regional governments, many dealings with cohesion policy and having access to EU funding. You can reach out and present your ideas for sustainable projects. It could be garden rooftops, or it could be protecting a green area where you are. It could be building a cycling path, or it could be an idea to organize composting for your neighborhood, or launch a cooperative with farmers in rural areas adjacent to where you are. You could launch projects to exchange goods, for instance, to exchange books, clothes, household items, increasing circularity and reducing waste. Or you could get involved in protecting local amphibians or planting flowers, helping to feed the butterflies and bees. The ideas are endless, and lots of things can be done locally. They involve getting organized and taking action. Among the policy initiatives that I mentioned within the context of the Green Deal, I would like to come back and draw your attention to the recently launched Climate Pact. When I said recently, it's from December last year. The Climate Pact is precisely foreseen with one idea in mind, and this is to spread awareness and support actions by citizens, including young people. Now, the pact will connect people and organizations from all walks of life to improve our understanding of climate and environmental challenges and developing solutions, big and small. It is about finding ways to influence and change behaviors, to trigger and scale up positive change. The Climate Pact offers support to a European climate movement, which is now growing and consolidating. We want to support that, and we are having now tools in place to do just that. The Climate Pact has a dedicated secretariat, which can help you get support and help you get involved in implementation of the pact. It gives everyone an easy way to get involved and to make a difference. Now, 4 areas will be supported by the Climate Pact in particular. It will be green urban public spaces, healthier and greener transport, efficient buildings, and skills for green jobs. My last point is on early engagement. Nature respecting children and teenagers will become nature respecting, environmentally conscious adults. On a personal note, the principle of an ecosystem was explained to me by my grandfather when I was 8 or 9 myself. He told me about how different organisms, plants and animals, bacteria and fungi, how they are all needed, how they are connected, and how taking one element out can destroy the entire system. Think of pollinators crisis now, for instance. And since then, my thinking about environment has been informed by this early out-of-school lesson. I cannot stress enough how important your interest in sustainability is and how much hope it gives us. It is your engagement now and in the future that will make a difference, or their difference. This is not to say that we are sitting and waiting for it. We are doing our part and planting the seeds for future action. But in some time, it will be you who will be in charge, and you will have to carry this work. I wish you lots of success in engaging in many good, and I also wish you many good and brave ideas. And I wish you courage, because change is difficult and it takes a lot of effort, sometimes against staunch resistance, and these efforts need to be sustained over time, sometimes a very long time. So with these wishes and my call for action, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Justyna Modjeska. That was a very nice intervention. I'm now very happy to welcome Jonas Schulze from the German, the Executive Director for the German Association for Housing, urban and spatial development, who's going to share with us a bit on the new Leipzig Charter and some of the German presidency's priorities from the last year. Mr. Schulz.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carrick, and warm greetings here from Brussels to all the participants for the seminar. I'm very, very happy to join this meeting and to present you the final results of the Leipzig Charter, because the German EU presidency is already over. Now it's the Portuguese presidency already, but we commonly worked together very strong in the last 2 years on this product. So the Leipzig Charter, what it is, the Leipzig Charter in a nutshell is an informal framework document. It's not a law. It's really an informal agreement of the ministers responsible for urban and spatial development. There was an informal ministerial meeting on 30th of November last year where we agreed this charter. So this charter is, however, a very important and very decisive document that sets the priority and the frame for urban development, the space where we all live, or the majority of people live in Europe. They live in cities. And so I will explain you, it's really a challenge. It's because it's a very complex document to explain you in 5 minutes. So I prepared a slide where you have a idea what's inside. So can you see my slide? Eric, can you see?
Yes, it might help if you do the full presentation mode on the slide, if possible. Perhaps on the bottom right near the bar. Beautiful. Yes, that's better. Thanks.
Okay. So the Leipzig Charter is not a new document. It was already adopted in 2007 under the last EU presidency from Germany. But over the past 14 years, the framework condition has tremendously changed. It is a document that don't want to formulate now new objectives. We have very important documents like the EU Green Deal, like the SDG 11, the Paris Agreement, and the Leipzig Charter now wants to support a perspective how urban development can support to reach these goals. So this is really the aspect of this document. When we started to draft this document 2 years ago, it was a long process because it was very important for the German government to reach an agreement that is where all the member states and also the European Commission will agree to this, what's inside. So we had a vast dialogue process on that. It takes enormous efforts. People from universities, from ministries, from the member states. So vast majority of people from Germany and also from Europe. We had also many meetings here in Brussels to commonly draft this document. So was a real bottom-up process, and successfully everyone agreed then to that what's inside this document. So the issue of urban development is very complex because it is not a sector of itself. Urban is everything. Everything you touch, if you open a street, you automatically touch different policies at the same time. So the issue what we wanted to address is also always the question, what instruments and what priorities do we need for urban development, for a good urban development, which topics we want to address, and what do we need for policies and financial support to implement, that it's not remain only a wishful thinking. So on this slide, you can see on the, let's say on the top, on the left side, you have 5 principles of urban development. You have an integrated planning. That means that different departments commonly develop a strategy. Then we have a place-based approach. Not each city has the same problem like other cities. So we need particular policies that really addresses the local needs for each place. And then there's a very important aspect, in particular also for young people. It's the participation co-creation process in urban development. It's your places that will be developed. It's your places, in particular public spaces where young people meet. This is the issue where young people really can address their politicians and the planners, because young people have a completely different view on their city, on their places, how they use it, like professional planners or elderly people. They have other issues. So really the participation, co-creation, very important aspect. Then we have a multi-level governance system that we need, that we have no contradictory among the different levels that are responsible for urban development. And what is very important, and this is the new aspect, is the common good. So to have a city, this is in a sense of all. That is not a city development which goes in the direction of the interest of a few. So this is in a nutshell the principles. Then we defined 3 levels. We have a just, a green, and the productive dimension of city. Who's into the EU policy will recognize the words. So we adjusted it to the ongoing words of EU documents as well. Just, green, productive. And the digitalization as a common topic, because it goes into each of this topic. So the just city or the just dimension of a city provides equal challenges to all the people live there, for the weakest, for elderly, for persons with disabilities. And this is the just dimension of the city, to provide equal education places, and it's really a whole complex dimension. Then we have the green dimension that addresses many policies, from starting from mobility services to air quality in cities. And we have the productive dimension of the city, which addresses mainly economic development, which is very important to have, because without taxes, you can forget the rest. And then we decided to focus on different spatial scales. We have in urban planning, we like to use or like to look on the neighborhood level, because the neighborhood level is that level in urban development where you can reach the people. It's their community where they live. And there, over the past years, there are very good concepts that you can implement on the neighborhood level. You can reach the actors that are responsible for that. The people live in the neighborhood, they feel responsible for their environment. And this is also the entry point to get the interest of younger people, if you invite them to participate in the neighborhood development processes. So very important aspect. Then local authority, it's the entire city level. This is the entry point to define and to draft entire strategies, youth strategies, sports strategies for cities. This is responsible of the policymakers and the governments of the cities. And the functional area, that means that many people live in the surrounding areas of cities. They're commuting every day to the city, go back to their village. And this is an important aspect from the spatial planning perspective, that we want to achieve a compact settlement structures, that not all houses are spread all over the region, and to reduce also the commuting aspects, that young people not have to commute each day from very far spaces to their schools and backwards. So this compact settlement structure is also a very important part of the Leipzig Charter. Now I come to the last point. This is, you see it more as a Greek columns on the bottom of this slide. This is the how. The first, what we need is that cities and responsible person in the city have access to steer the development of this infrastructure. In many cities, we have a high degree of privatization of all this access, so we cannot really steer it anymore. So this is one important aspect. Then there's a huge lack of people who work in the city councils. If you don't have the skilled persons who can implement it, then we have a bottleneck in implementing all these nice concepts. So we need people, we need also the support from financial instruments, be it from national or regional level. And the last one is the legal framework. So we have the EU Urban Agenda. It's a very complex process started under the Dutch presidency some years ago. And the ministers who agreed on the Leipzig Charter also said, okay, we need an urban-proof EU policy as well. So let's keep on this policy where we can shape an urban-proof legal development process. I say it in a very easy words now. It's a very, very complex topic. And as Violetta said, also already the EU framework from cohesion policy, from the ERDF funding, from the ESF funding, gives us many cities very good opportunity to bring new projects into the practice, to use this money to support cities. Then we have national framework conditions. We have national policies that the ministers agreed to install in the next years to support urban development as well. So this is in a very, I stop at this point. I can talk a few hours further on this very complex topic, but I don't want to steal so much time to the others. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schulze, for the overview of the new Leipzig Charter. So we have these sort of policy instruments and these bottom-up processes that have resulted in these documents and frameworks. And I'm very happy that we have the opportunity to listen to a case study of how these sort of things look in implementation in a city with strong youth engagement, an ongoing project from the city of Baia Mare in Romania. And for this presentation, we're very lucky to have Codruț Pepina, who is an urban planner and the citizens engagement coordinator for the project, as well as Anicu Machus, who is the startup program coordinator for the Green Energy Innovative Biomass Cluster. So we look forward to hearing a bit about this case study over the next 10 minutes.
Thank you, Karik. So first of all, hello, it's nice to meet you all. We are going to present the Spire Baia Mare project. So my name is Codruț Pepina. I represent Urba Sofia, a strategic urban planning company. I work on Spire project alongside my colleagues who wrote the project, Sabina Leopa and Pietro Verga. And we also have with us Matiu Senico, representing Romanian Green Energy Cluster, one of the partners of the project. We have to mention that Spire team is a bigger consortium and represents an interdisciplinary team. So we are going to briefly present the background of the project and the general framework, and then we are going to talk more about the co-creation principles and the results and how to empower the young generation through the Spire incubator. But first, some information about Baia Mare today. This is a representative image of Baia Mare, the historical center, but this is still the same territory. Baia Mare has a strong industrial past of mining and steel industry that left a legacy of approximately 627 hectares of heavy metal soil polluted land. This activity led in the year of 2000 to an ecological disaster, a cyanide spill in the local river that affected ecosystems internationally through the rivers Tisa and then to the river Danube. It was called the worst environmental disaster in Europe since the Chernobyl disaster. So this is where Spire project comes into play. First of all, what is Urban Innovative Action? It is an initiative of the European Union that provides resources to test new and unproven solutions. So the Spire project is an experimental project. When the project was submitted, the topics of the call were digital transition, sustainable use of land and nature-based solutions, urban poverty, and urban security. The project focused mainly on the second topic, creating synergies with objectives 11, 13, and 15 of the urban agenda. Then SPIRE means Smart Post-Industrial Regenerative Ecosystem. The objective is to start a long-term redevelopment process through participatory co-design and highlight co-design of productive landscapes integrated into a circular ecosystem of value chains. So these are the policy domains of the SPIRE project that it responds to each sum of components of the project. The mission is to remediate the pilot sites upcycle the resulted green waste, or better said biomass, and involve citizens in ecological activities. On the right side, you have a set of indicators that we want to achieve through this process. Very briefly, this is the implementation framework. I circled the areas where the local communities and the youth are more involved. It is organized in 3 stages. The first one is setting up the framework. The second one is transformation of the sites and triggering the circularity of the biomass. And between them, you have the stakeholder engagement and co-creation process. The last stage is upscaling to the metropolitan level. Very short, we are here. We finished the final design of the pilot sites, but the co-creation process is not yet over. These are the pilot sites we want to regenerate through phytoremediation, which simply put is using plants to clean the soil. And at the same time, the pilot sites will open to the local community as ecological public spaces, but mind that they will have very limited amenities due to a very strict set of constraints. So the co-creation process, we are still not finished with this process. It started in October, November 2020. At the beginning of the process, a set of principles were developed, and now I extracted the ones I consider most important. So the first one will be gradual involvement. It's very important to have a brick by brick approach. Co-empathize. It's important to understand the needs and necessity of the community. And the last but not least, creative activities for creative solutions. So the involvement of the community in a collaborative approach must be made accessible in language and visual representations. You have to be very open and inclusive. So the SPIRE co-creation objective, the pilot sites are to be used by local communities. We have to co-design the landscape designs with the local communities. We have to design also the thematic areas in a collaborative manner, and then co-implement the solutions. With the help of a regular set of activities like Plantathlon and Harvest Fest, we can also establish a sense of ownership by the local community. So the first step was to prepare. It is important to have a hybrid approach, mixing promoting, consulting, and participating activities, both online and offline. So far, we have not managed to have offline activities, but we are planning to have them in the near future. So the co-design process, we elaborated a framework of co-design and co-implementing process. The above mentioned principles were applied to this framework, starting with public questionnaires in two stages. Each public questionnaire feeds the next activity, which is the workshops. So very short, the workshop stage 1 had as objectives to get on the same level, establish trust, and be inclusive. This is the result of one exercise we made with the attendees. We asked them what is community, and then we generated the word cloud with the most common answers. Coming next, community forms when, and it must be consulted for, and these are the results. And this is the end conclusion of the community exercise. In this manner, we establish trust between the project and the attendees. For workshop stage 2, we had to present the objective of the co-creation process so they know what we want from them and they also know what we can give to them. We explained the constraints of the pilot size transformation, such as vegetation, perviousness, accessibility, and a very strict range of functions that are possible to implement. And then after they understand these principles, we worked on collaborative exercises to develop solutions. We used Jamboard platform. This is one exercise where they brainstorm on problems and solutions and organize them on a scale from non-important to most important. This is a mood board on ambience and thematic functions. Organize them on attractivity and necessary. And going by brick approach, this is the end result. An exercise where we collaboratively discuss with the young people from the schools how to transform these sites, how it is potential to implement some activities. And this is the technical design from all developed from all the previous activities. What is next? Next, we want to design interventions, very punctual, like urban furniture, art installation, and the minimal intervention involving the youth. It will be organized in two sections, co-designing and co-implementing. So in conclusion, it's very important to mix online and offline activities if you can in this time of the pandemic. So far, it proved to be really hard even to hold only digital activities. You must encourage people to work together and be creative, and you have to establish first a level of trust. If you want to find more about the co-creation in times of the pandemic, you can check a dedicated webinar on our YouTube page, and I will leave the link at the end. Now I will invite Matthias and Nico, please.
Thank you very much. As my colleague said, it is a very complex problem. It's an ecological disaster. So we established new plantations of different plants like energy willow. But the biggest question is what we do with the biomass. What we do with this green waste, how we can transform it in value on local level, because this is a raw material, but this industry of biomass is not so developed. And also how to create a local value chain around the biomass, how to collect it, how to transform in green energy or clean energy, and how to digitalize the whole process. So we definitely need startups, but in order to work with these startups, we have to design a framework. Because what is interesting in this project that we do not want to transfer knowledge from the partners, as you saw, it's a very complex partnership, to startups, well-established companies, but to co-think, to think together and to develop together some sustainable solutions which can be multiplied, because this situation which exists in Baia Mare, it's not something very specific on the city, but we have a lot of sites all around Europe dealing with this problem, with heavy metal contaminated sites. So next slide, please. So in this sense, we designed a mentoring program, and now we are in the open call stage. And from the applications, we will select the best and the 10 most relevant ideas to or solutions in order to face this ecological issue around and to capitalize the resulting biomass. And local people will have the opportunity to vote for the best ideas. Some pitch videos will be uploaded and published for the local people so they can vote. And the first 6 ideas will enter into the mentoring program. The mentoring program has 2 main stages. In the first place, we would like to work with these young people on the improvement of the value proposition, on the business model around the idea, and on in the end of this first stage, there will be a demo day and a jury made by a representative of the economic sector, 1 representative of the research sector, and 1 representative from the local authority will select 3 winners. So at the first stage, there will be a mentoring program provided by the partners. Will try to strengthen some kind of ecosystem with these young startuppers. But we don't speak just about businesses, but also students who have great ideas in this sense. And then after the demo day, the 3 winners will enter in the second stage of the mentoring program, where we speak about an intensive mentoring on very specific issues, and they will have the opportunity to occupy one space in the or working point within the newest green hub of the city, which is also a makerspace. They will have the opportunity to use free of charge all the 3D printers and other equipments in order to develop their prototype for 2 years. So because the local authority is supporting this process, and we don't speak just about a project for 3 years, but a process on long term. Next slide, please. And how we can assure the quality of the mentoring. We are a cluster specialized in the biomass field. We were the Romanian representatives of 8 InnoEnergy. We have several research projects in this sense. So the main idea is to select startups or startup ideas whose ideas can be multiplied and used as best practices, and also to create a very strong value chain on local level and to serve as a best practice on European level. In our cluster, we have more than 80 members, not just from Romania. So these people will have also the opportunity to access funds in order to develop their businesses. This is all from my side. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Kodrut and Macius. It's a really impressive project, and the way young people are being engaged, not just at the beginning and determining the issues or proposing solutions, but even to have their startup ideas adopted and mentored. I think it's under 30 is the requirement for age for these startup leaders. It's very cool. So finally, I'm very happy and proud to introduce a young activist and volunteer with ActionAid Denmark, Barako Jamal Hussein, who's going to provide us some remarks based on those interventions.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the webinar today. It has been very enlightening to hear from all the panelists. Even though we still have a long journey ahead of us, I'm full of hope and excitement for our joint efforts in creating a sustainable world together. My name is Barako, and I'm a young activist for ActionAid Denmark. Our efforts to promote inclusive and sustainable communities is built on youth councils, where we engage in democratic debates and activism to promote our communities in a more inclusive and sustainable direction. We only succeed when everyone is included and no one is left behind. More than half of the world's population live in cities, and by 2050, 6.5 billion people will be living in urban space. Making cities sustainable means creating career and business opportunities, safe and affordable housing, and building resilient societies and economies. It involves investment in public transportation, creating green public spaces, and improving urban planning and management in participatory and inclusive ways. In Europe, there is an increased demand for safe and affordable housing, which I will call upon governments and civil society organizations to work harder to achieve. I grew up in a social housing community in Copenhagen, where I do volunteer work with ActionAid Denmark. Since 2018, the government has made new laws and legislation with the goal of defeating so-called parallel societies. With different criteria, areas are categorized as social housing areas based on the number of inhabitants of non-Western background, like myself. Their method to remove these areas include decreasing the number of affordable family housing by tearing down the existing buildings and rebuilding expensive private housing. In this process, we know that several green areas will be minimized. Not only is it discriminatory, but I also view it as harmful urban renewal plans with the consequences of leaving some of the most vulnerable behind. I'm sure that many other inhabitants in urban areas around Europe experience similar consequences of such urban renewal efforts. The main recommendation to avoid harmful policies and ensure more sustainability in the future urban planning is for the government to include the inhabitants and the affected people, especially young people. All UN member states adopted the 2030 agenda that seeks to reach the forest behind of the SDGs goals that address inequality and urbanization are key. SDG 11 states to enhance inclusive and sustainable urbanization and capacity for participatory, integrated, and sustainable human settlement, planning and management in all countries. All SDG 10 states that the government should promote more social, economic, and political empowerment and inclusion of everyone despite their background. To increase youth engagement in Europe's urban future, I call upon governments and civil society. For governments, I will recommend to creating an enabling environment that facilitates open, inclusive, and participatory and accountable governance. A key element of this is ensuring that governments uphold fundamental rights and freedoms at national and local level, and open and proactive to listen to and engage with young people. For example, including young people in the new EU Green Deal, conduct structural root causes and analysis to address systematic discrimination and structural barriers, provide affordable housing and public services, for example, public transportation and healthcare for populations residing in social housing communities so that they can support themselves and their families. For the civil society, I will recommend to integrating youth engagement in municipalities and national citizen forums, for example, like the Youth Council that I myself volunteer in, and provide space and opportunities for young people to contribute their experiences and ideas on how to establish sustainable urbanization through inclusion of young people in all their diversity. To sum up, we must listen to the youth. Since half of the population, the world's population, are under 30 years old, it is to our benefit to have a more sustainable world. Based on today's inspiring session, I sense we are all willing and ready to take that responsibility. I am looking forward to achieving these efforts together with you and others while making sure that no one is left behind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Rocco, for those remarks. I think they're very much appreciated by everyone here. We have 8 minutes left, very rich conversations. I wonder if anyone in the audience has a question they wish to pose, please feel free. As you type, I want to comment that I think this is the start of a conversation on youth engagement in the Green Deal, in urban and territorial development in Europe, and that this is going to be an ongoing conversation with many engagement opportunities, particularly as Ms. Dunn and Jessica said, the 21 to 27 is the funding brackets, so to say. And so much of the work we do today is going to have an impact for the programs and policies that are set out in the next 7 years and beyond. And so we haven't received any questions yet. I'd be curious, maybe even if a panelist has a question for another panelist, you're very welcome to pose it. Not quite yet. Well, I'll let you think on it. As everyone is doing their thinking and perhaps typing questions, I want to invite Alessandra Cardacci from the European Commission, a communication officer, who's been doing some really fantastic organizing with young people, both issuing a manifesto based on young people's participation in cohesion policy, as well as with her colleagues building a toolkit for how to integrate young people's participation in the Just Transition Fund, which is a major aspect of EU funding to ensure that this transition toward a carbon neutral society, as said earlier, does not leave anyone behind. So Alessandra, perhaps you could share for 2 minutes or so what you're doing and how people can get involved.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I'll try to be as short as possible because we are at the end, and I'm sorry I joined a bit late because I had another meeting, but enough to see many promising projects and people together to involve citizens, civil society, and youth in policy making and project implementation at the local level. So indeed, as Karik just said, we as a Commission and Director General for Regional Policy, which is part of cohesion policy, which is after all a big bunch of EU money, especially also given that we are accessing a new budget period, 21-27. And basically we decided to involve young people in the policy making process. And basically what we did is that last year we celebrated the 30 years of a specific scheme under our policy, which is called Interreg, which is about boosting cross-border and transnational macro-regional cooperation among territories in Europe. And we use this celebrative moment to try to involve young people by asking them simply how they think that specifically regional policy can help support solving their issues that go from many of the topics you talked about today, of course climate, but also education, inclusion in all sense, also in terms of employment opportunities and so on. And we publish a manifesto indeed that presents the main issues young people are concerned about, especially related to the local, regional and cooperational dimension, together with 12 recommendations that we want to, with which we want to ask decision makers at EU level, but also national, regional, local level, because as we saw today, this is multi-governance issue. I mean, when we talk about involving citizens and young people in spending of EU budget, especially for the structural fund and the cohesion policy funds, it's at all levels that people need to get together and involve young people. And we also prepared a checklist to accompany authorities to implement this recommendation, because what we notice is that sometimes authorities are willing to involve civil society or young people, but they maybe don't know where to start from. So we started this process, and just to finish very quickly, I could speak for hours about this, but we have a core group of people that are interested in the manifesto, in disseminating or even implementing if they are at authority level on LinkedIn. So anyone is invited to join, and we have regular calls to coordinate from the Commission side, but also the young people, the civil society, any multiplier who is in there to implement the manifesto. Because again, this is, I'm very glad to have the chance to got the support from the Commission and my colleagues on involving young people and the cabinet here represented today to involve more and more young people, and that's very promising for all of us. But after all, this is also the manifesto wants to be a tool in the hands of young people themselves, and again, civil societies, authorities, anyone who understands the importance of practically involving young people in decision making at all levels. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. So I'm going to propose in concluding that people feel free, if Alessandra, you want to put an email or a link in the chat, don't hesitate. That is open to anyone. And at the same time, we have a question that I say each of us take 15 minutes, 15 seconds as panelists to respond to, and that will be our closing remark from all of us. And the question is, what methods could be used to promote international cooperation in urban sustainability? Question also mentions obstacles. If that's something you want to touch in your 15 seconds, you're very welcome to. I'm going to propose that Matthews, you start.
Okay, thank you. I think there is a lack of an integrating platform to have in one place all the good initiatives in this sense. I saw best practices in the Interreg Europe program, where is a platform where people interested in one topic and one project proposal can collaborate together in order to provide a project proposal, but otherwise I think it is very hard.
Okay, thank you. Jonas, your 15 seconds.
Yes, very good question. I think this is really the main task of the European Union to further provide such programs like we have ORBACT. It's a wonderful program for integrated planning to get in contact with other cities. We have Interreg, we have like this urban innovative actions and so on. So this is a really good thing, but also from a national perspective, as the Leipzig Charter says, implement national urban policies. Also, this could be a good platform to invite other stakeholders with implementing national urban policies to get in touch to each other. And last, I would like to say to all the young people, this document is also signed by your minister. So please go to your minister and say, you signed this and act according to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kudrat, 15 seconds.
Yeah, I will be very short. I think it's very important for the local communities and to the youth to realize that some of the problems we are facing are not just locally, are on the European or global level, and we have to work together because we use the same resource in the bigger landscape. We live on the same planet. So I guess cooperation, I think the key word is openness and work together. This is
Thank
my
you.
2 cents.
Thank you. Violeta.
Yes. When I think about international cooperation in urban sustainability, or generally international cooperation for young people, I would say, and this is a response from outside of the policy world a little bit, and I would say that the most important thing is mentoring and leaders, local leaders who care to involve young people. And the reason I'm saying that also is because I was one of these young volunteers, and I volunteered for at least 5 years when I was a teenager in a youth center. And this is where my experience of international projects comes from. And I remember at the time we did a project for disadvantaged youth, and we collaborated from the place where I am, from Poland. We collaborated with some people in Portugal and some people in France. And we had an EU-funded project on that subject. So I would say this is a call for people working with youth, people working with children, to make them sensitive to these issues and help them organize themselves. They have to feel that what they do matters. And I think very often people don't do things because they think it doesn't matter what they do. It does. Every little thing does matter. Children and young people have to see that they are being taken seriously and what they do really can make a difference.
Thank you. Ravako, your 15 seconds on the question.
Yeah. I also think it's important to work internationally because I think we could use each other to exchange experiences and some things like what didn't work and what can work. So that's what I think we should try, but it's difficult. I think we need to have like a platform that we can exchange ideas. And in this platform, it's important to also have young people so they also can have their say.
Thank you. Alessandra, any thoughts?
Thanks. Well, I fully agree with all of you. Moreover, simply put, very practically, reach out. I mean, simply put, I got to know Karik because he sent me an email, and then I shared this webinar with the people from our core group, from the manifesto. So connect with people that are doing similar things to you, not just to share best practices, but to coordinate, capitalize on existing activities, projects. So increase internal, external coordination to build a network, because the more we are, the higher is the probability we will be heard as citizens, first of all, and internally in whatever you're doing, your organization and so on. So that's my message, stronger together indeed. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you all very, very much for sharing your time and insights, experiences. As we said, there's a lot of work to do and hope to do it. And so I think we'll be in touch online and hopefully one day soon in person to keep this mission going. So thank you again. Have a very nice afternoon, morning, evening, middle of the night, wherever you may be joining from.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a nice day.